I was unconscious in the hospital for about almost 7 days. And then when I woke up, I did not remember who I was. I didn't recognize my mom. I still have no memory of that morning or to that of Thanksgiving, which was about a week, 2 weeks later. And that's just completely gone.
Welcome to When You Look, where ordinary people share their extraordinary experiences, and you get to decide, was it coincidence or God? Nicole, thanks so much for being on When You Look. Genuinely pumped to have you on the show, truly.
Yes, thank you for having me, Mick. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me as well. You've got an amazing story. We are absolutely excited to hear it. But before we jump into it, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Nicole. I am the author of Shattered into Grace. I'm also an engineer, a mother, and a yogi. Really, my goal is to, especially starting off with this book that I've just written, is to help other women and people really deal with their trauma and life-challenging experiences and hopefully drive them closer to God.
Yeah, how about that? Drive them closer to God. Very cool. Well, I think your story's absolutely going to do that. So let's dive in. Give us a little bit of backstory and then walk us through things as they occurred for you.
Yeah, so when I was 20 years old, I literally just changed my major probably the semester before that, and finally found my great niche. I felt like throughout my childhood, I really kind of struggled just fitting in, and which I go into more detail in the book, but I just really found my niche. And I say that to say then I was walking on campus, and my friend and I were actually waiting on the corner for the light to change so we could deliver this project. And a car drove up behind us and hit us and continued to go down the street at 30 miles an hour. I ended up with 7 fractures to my skull, a severe traumatic brain injury, and a fractured fibula. I was unconscious in the hospital for about almost 7 days. And then when I woke up, I did not remember who I was. I didn't recognize my mom. And really, as I share all of this, I still have no memory of that morning or to that of Thanksgiving, which was about a week, 2 weeks later. And that's just completely gone. But after that, yeah. So then, I went back home. It was towards the end of that semester, but obviously I couldn't finish that semester. I was pretty much a shell. Even the doctors told my parents that all they could do was bring me home and hope that my memory came back and that I healed. So we really had no idea. But as we see, here I am 13 years later, and I have a successful career, a loving family, and I'm just continuing to walk in what God drives me to do, and I've been successful so far.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, Nicole, we've gotta recap this one, girl, because there's a lot happening here. So you and a friend are struck by a car. Wow. Major impact, obviously, to your head, broken skull numerous times. You talked about the fibula being broken as well, which was probably the least of your worries at that point. And you are in, it sounds like a coma for a week, right?
Yeah.
Was that medically induced?
No.
Okay. Wow. So you're in a coma for a full week and then come out with essentially amnesia to some degree of not having any recollection of what occurred, or even critical people in your life, your mom, not even being able to recognize her. So it seems like the T being traumatic in TBI is an understatement. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. My mom always said, like, one of the first things that I said to her was, I don't know who you are, but I know I am meant to be with you. And that's another area where it's like faith just played in, because even though I had no idea, my brain was so scrambled, like all these key details were still there. And it really was just the puzzle pieces were there, and I was trying to fit them back together. And as surprisingly, the even more surprising thing to that is 2 months later, I was able to go back to school.
Yeah. Wow. Which in the grand scheme of things is a very short period of time from the severity of what you experienced.
Even though I did go back to school, I still like the recovery and the healing process. It was intense, which I go into more in my book. But it really, I would say, it took me a full 8 years to truly heal and be physically and mentally in a stable place.
Wow. 8 years. Just tell us a little bit more about all that.
Yeah, so I would say for the first 5 years, it was I did on and off have still have migraines, a lot of pain in my head. But the biggest thing that I think a lot of people miss with traumatic brain injuries is the emotional impact. And really, I went through a huge depression phase, and a lot of my emotions were when I was happy, those emotions were very very high, but then the crashes were very very low. And that really went on until I truly started to actually seek my relationship with God, which I go into my book. But then that happened. That resulted in my full recovery at 8 years after the accident.
Yeah. Wow. Super high highs, super low lows, and probably lots in between as well.
Right.
Mm, wow. Well, maybe let's go back to college, okay?
Okay.
And give us a sense for what life is like for you as it relates to your awareness of or even any relationship with God and or Jesus at that time.
Yep. So I when I growing up, real quick, my relationship with God was very casual, and my family went to church every Sunday, and that was about it. I knew I was a Christian, but I didn't always really know what that meant. I would say I did believe God existed, but I never picked up the Bible on my own besides church on Sunday. And then going to college, I went to Marquette University, which is a Jesuit university, and I was like, oh, this might be good. This will be exciting. I can actually learn about this God I believed in. But the first theology class, which was my freshman year, which was the year before the accident, it was like a slap in my face because we started going over all these like where really areas of the Bible where people will be like, oh, like God, is God good? Like really those like, which anybody that really dives into the Bible, it's everything that happens is for a reason, and God is always good. But there's like when these negative things are just called out, you're like, wait, this is the God that I believe in. And that's really what was drilled in. So went through this phase where I was like, well, maybe I believe in God, but not the Bible. And then that was all of that happened right before the accident. And then the accident happened. And with me having this rocky feeling and relationship, it really just made me angry with God. Like,
Okay. Angry. Yeah. Say more.
yeah, just like why would you do this? Why did this happen to me? What did I do to have this happen to me? Instead of looking at, wow, he got me through this horrible accident, which I very easily could have died from. But at that point, I really just wondered why he kept me here.
Yeah. How, did he ever answer that?
Yeah, he's definitely showed me that through the different experiences that he's had me go into, especially through my career. I've continued to do well and excel in my career, grow in my role really really quickly, and also just be able to connect with different people through my story and just in general.
Yeah. Wow. So the book is called Shattered into Grace.
Yes.
Tell us about that title and the significance of it.
Yeah, so really starting with shattered, as I said, the accident resulted in 7 fractures to my skull. So really that shatter, that shake up of my life and where I was at, and physically and mentally, really resulted in me having to piece everything back together. But then I really wasn't able to truly piece everything together until I really sought after God and realizing that He is the reason why I have made it through all of these things, which is where I say into grace.
Yeah, I track with you on that. One of your blurbs related to the book includes this idea of feeling abandoned by God. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So after when the accident happened, I was just angry because I finally felt like I was in this place in my life where I was finding a happiness. I was feeling fit in. I had this great group of friends, which I still have in my life today. And then also, I also found my major that I was happy with because when I first started going to school, I was pre med, and I soon realized that I was not meant to be pre med, and I fell into my engineering major, which that semester prior to the accident, I was just excelling in and doing very, very well. So when the accident happened, it was like, why now? Why are you doing this to me now? And so that really resulted in more of that just abandonment feeling.
Mm, yeah. And then you mentioned you've got a recovery of approximately 8 years. Um, what are some of the lasting impacts that you've experienced from that traumatic brain injury, the TBI?
I would say I every once in a while, not as often as I used to, I'll still have that really bad pain in the back of my neck, specifically if I don't get enough sleep. But it's not as bad as what it was right after the accident. So I always say it's minor. I Whenever people ask that, I'm like, oh, I have no lasting effects. But the reality is, I'm going to always have lasting effects, even if I realize them or not. So that's really the physical part. Another thing that I've realized is actually funny enough. My mom and I were talking because she had an MRI in her brain a few weeks ago, and they were talking about how the white masses in her brain really is from she suffers from migraines, and they said that that's likely. But if so, you're likely to see those white masses if you have migraines or have a trauma. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should probably get my brain checked out to see if there's any lasting effects there. But that's a minor random tangent. But that's something that I often think about. But also, my I've actually been able to really recover from a lot of the emotional ebbs and flows I used to have. But of course, I still have them every once in a while. But I'm able to rebound from them a lot faster than what I was.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning your mom just a moment ago. And at the outset, you kind of talked about how you didn't recognize her at all. So give us some more insight into the recovering of your memory and what that has been like.
Yeah. So right after the accident, like I say, I didn't really recognize or remember anything, but my parents took me home. I really slept a lot, but as I was sleeping and recovering, the memories slowly started to come back. And I was able to get into a place somehow by mid-December where my mom was able to talk through to me and help me understand that, okay, you didn't finish your last semester, but was able to get everything together so that you just have to go back and take these tests and
Mm.
and finish out the semester, which I was struggling to remember who I was and saying that I was a runway model in Paris a few months ago, like random stuff that did not make any sense. But I still had to go make sure I finish these physics labs and take these statics tests. And but so I was able to get my mind at least together enough to go and fumble through these tests and these final exams, which thank God that I was doing so well that semester because it really helped my GPA to stay above 3.0 somehow. And so after fumble, but I say that to say those tests I think also helped me to be able to get back to place where I could actually return to school that following semester because if with your brain, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think right after that accident, even all the pieces were still there, but I just needed them pieced back together. And I think if I would have waited any longer or wanted to jump back into things, it would have been even tougher for me to get back. And maybe I would have never been able to actually return to school. So I, going back to the memory piece, it was tough. I struggled but I somehow, I would just say by the grace of God, was able to get all of that back together and my memory back together and go to school. Granted, it wasn't easy. I ended up having to take a couple adjustments. Like I had to take tests in a different room, get an extended time because I wasn't able to do it like the rest of my classmates. But slowly, I was able to get everything back to where, well, I wouldn't even say back to how it was before the accident. I somehow graduated with my engineering degree. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, because you did mention that even to this day, your recollection of certain things just simply isn't there.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe getting to 80 or 90% of memory recovery, how long did that take?
I would say at least 5 years. But and even now, a lot of things like in my childhood, a lot of things people bring up like, oh, do you remember doing this? Do you remember that? And I'm like, no. No, I don't remember that at all. There's some solid memories that I can remember, but I could probably count them on one hand how many memories from my childhood I remember. It's more of feelings, not not actual remembrance of things that happened.
Yeah. Wow, I'm pausing here for a second because what's striking me with that is the oh gosh, pardon the pun here, but the impact. I mean, this is you were clearly struck by someone at a very high rate of speed, 30 miles per hour, as you mentioned. But the impact of that had on you clearly physically, and then all of the downstream impacts of that. I mean, that is significant.
Yes.
Significant. Wow. Well, you mentioned you and your friend standing on the corner waiting to cross the street. What is their status? What happened to them?
Yeah, so here the engineering in me will kick in a little bit because my friend is about almost a foot shorter than me. And so her impact with the vehicle was so different. Because obviously the vehicle struck her at a different angle. And so she ended up having an MCL and ACL tear in both of her knees, but her
Okay.
brain was fine. And so I think the most tragic thing is she actually remembers everything. And I couldn't imagine being in her shoes and literally walking into my hospital room and seeing me unconscious and my my head in whatever configuration it was and realizing, oh, I just remembering it all. That just has to be tragic in its own. And I know like herself actually really struggles with thinking about it.
Mm.
But we are still friends to this day. It's something that when you go through something like that with somebody, you're guaranteed to be friends with them for life. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just completely different impact.
Oh. Yeah, literally and emotionally. Wow. Well, Nicole, let's come back to the abandonment, feeling abandoned by God and shattered into grace clearly indicates that, and you've certainly been talking about it and alluding to it as well, but maybe share with us how you go from that feeling abandoned to where you are today.
Yeah. So after the accident and because I felt so abandoned, I felt okay. After I started getting my brain back together, I don't want to be in this negative place, this darkness for forever. But because this is how I felt because God abandoned me, I have to piece all this back together myself. And it's funny that's how I felt because look now in the shoes that I'm in now, I look back and I'm like, God had me the whole time. And even though I didn't acknowledge him, which, and so I started my career. Even with the small inconveniences I had from the brain injury, I started my career. I moved out of the state. I was just ready and set to do this on my own, find my happiness, the thing that I've always been seeking my whole life. And it as I was succeeding, it also started to crumble. I found myself in a negative relationship that I really should have never been in, really just did not value my self-worth. And I finally got to a point where I was like, okay, I can't do this on my own anymore. And I got on my knees and I started praying because I just was in such a deep, dark hole. And that was probably, let's see, that was in 2018. So that was about 5 years after the accident, right when I like the physical pain started going away. And even though the physical pain started going away, the emotional darkness was just weighing on me really heavy, and I wasn't able to get out of it on my own. And that's when he really started reshaping everything around me, started showing me, like really pushing me to a different role and even a completely different state. I moved and I just started realizing when I can't do this on my own anymore, and started seeking him, got out of the negative relationship and just started thriving.
Praise God. What did the seeking him look like?
Really, in that moment, just prayer to start with, just prayer. And that's where it started. And that's what really got me out of the dark hole. But then as I continued to move forward and realizing, okay, prayer got me this far, what would listening to this sermon do for me? Or what would it opening the Bible and studying it do for me? And as I started incorporating that slowly, and now this was over a whole, like, probably 3-year period. It was a lot of growth, a long time. But as I started implementing these small things in my life, I realized I started to thrive and be in such a more positive mental state on my own. I was able to, like, slowly and in a healthy way get off of my antidepressants, really just start to heal.
Yeah. Wow. Prayer and then um, seeking God through his word and through other sermons. Yeah. Over, as you described, a period of time. And I think that's great. I really appreciate the transparency there. That sometimes people think that transformation happens instantaneously. And I bet you and I would probably agree on this, that in some ways it absolutely does.
But yeah,
And then in other ways, it takes a long sort of sanctifying process
yes, yes,
for that transformation.
yes.
Yeah. Well, what prompted you to write the book?
Was I was about 2 years ago. I had just actually got baptized. I was baptized as a child, but after going through everything that I go on through in my adulthood, that was part of the transformation. I would say, as I realized I need to publicly declare my faith, give my life over to Jesus, and so I got baptized and
Yeah.
found myself finally in a very positive, loving relationship. And I just was sitting there and I was like, just very thankful. But also, I truly feel God told me that I need to share my story, that my story is going to help others. And so I just started writing. I literally just started writing year by year, writing out how my whole journey went, and then started working with a book coach. And really, after 2 years, we've got Shattered into Grace. And I think the most amazing thing about it is actually hearing people share that the book is really helping them reflect on their past and grow. And I haven't even told anyone that that's the whole point of it, or what the purpose that I felt it was. And so for it to come into fruition, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super neat. Well, you talked earlier about this idea of wanting to do things on your own, but in hindsight, knowing God had you the whole time.
Yeah.
Illuminate that a little more for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So like one way is when I graduated from Marquette. Well, I was really, really struggling. Oh, this is actually a good point. I was really, really struggling with finding a job, which I was so worried. I'm pretty sure many college students go through this, but especially after the brain injury, because I had the interviews, but I wasn't getting an offer. So I'm like, can they tell in the interview that I'm slow? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But then, and like, then it was towards the end of my spring semester, and that is another point where I was going to an interview, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna pray on this one. And I did. And that actually was the only offer that I got. And that's the offer that I took. And that's where my career started. And as 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 I was moving through that job, because it actually was a rotational program. And it's really started with me being in Illinois, and I've always wanted to leave the Midwest. And I kind of got towards the end of that rotation, and I just like in my mind was like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to show that I have healed from this brain injury and that I'm ready to move. And the opportunity did come for me to move to Texas. And I thought, oh, like perfect. I did this. Like I did this all on my own. I got it. But in reality, we know like I didn't do it on my own. He gave me the opportunity. Now the opportunity didn't go as I was hoping it was. So, and that's in the end when I ended up seeking him. But he he continued to have me make my back, and really, I mean, the situations I put myself in could have ended up way worse than what any of they did, which I go into more in my book. But in reality, I've, I've become successful. I've been successful through every role that I've gotten, and I continue to have people that are important and necessary, like in my life.
I track with that, Nicole.
Awesome.
Thanks for breaking that down.
Yeah.
Well, we ask our guests towards the end of each conversation 2 questions. And the first of which is, was it coincidence or God? And what we're really talking about there is, I mean, you've outlined so many different things. So I think you could pick a particular point in time, but we'll just kind of keep that one wide open. You know, was all of what has occurred here that you've described coincidence or God in action?
I 100% believe it was God in action. Every piece of my life, it could, like I was kind of leading to, it could have gone down a completely different road, but He has continued to just carry me through it all, and it's amazing. And I can't. There's no way it's just coincidence.
Yeah. Well, let's stay here for another second, because I think there may be some listeners that say, okay, Nicole, I track with you on that kind of at a high level, especially now. But when we're saying, or when you're saying it's God here, is that including getting hit by a car?
Interesting you say that, because a lot of people, I believe that God does allow things to happen. And not because it's, oh, you were a bad person, this should happen to you, this is going to get you in check. It's more of He's going to help us grow or help others by going through this situation. And because bad things happen all the time. And that's one thing that I share with very often is because because I believe in God, and because I am a Christian, that doesn't mean things are easy. Like the road is hard, but there's always that light, and it's always a lot less heavy. So no, I don't believe that God purposely got me hit by a car, but I think God is allowing me to use that experience to others, and to, yeah, we'll see. Great things keep coming. So I'm excited to see what continues to come.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Seriously. I mean, I can see the smile on your face. I can hear the joy in your voice. Great things keep coming.
Mhm.
Praise God.
Yes.
Man, that is good. That is good. All right, friend. Last question for you. How has your life changed as a result of all of this?
As a result of the accident, or just my faith or belief in God?
All of the above. I think certainly makes sense to include some of the accident in that, but give us a sense for how your life has changed.
Yeah, I think overall, I mean, if I wouldn't have gotten hit, I guess I'll start there. Is who knows? I often get asked, was I smarter before the accident or after? And because I mean, I was still an engineer, I still obviously was able to get a lot of my. I'm very, very blessed. Many people don't get the opportunities or have the recovery that I did, and I definitely can say I was a lot quicker. I think my career would have looked a little bit different. I think I might have been like corporate corporate woman but I also wouldn't be able to relate with a lot of people that I've been able to relate to. And I think the accident and just things that I've gone through, one made me a little bit more humble, I would say, and in a way that just allows me to just relate and understand others a lot better where they are.
Yeah.
Hopefully that
Wow.
answers the question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Nicole, it's been a real pleasure having this conversation with you. We've mentioned the book, but tell everybody where they can find the book and how they can stay in contact with you.
Yes. So if you go to dynamicallycrafted.com, that's my website, there's a tab for book, and there you can find all the locations that you can purchase the book. And also there's a tab for contact. So you can contact me there. Again, that's dynamicallycrafted.com.
Sweet. Sounds good. You heard it there first, everybody. Dynamicallycrafted.com. Well, Nicole, thank you a ton. It really has been wonderful to hear this amazing story. Thank you for sharing it, especially the details of things like amnesia, up to and including not even recognizing your mom. I mean, that's big stuff.
Yeah.
And feeling abandoned, and now saying with a giant grin on your face, good things keep coming. You know, it's really quite incredible to be able to have chatted with you today. So thanks a bunch for coming on When You Look. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Mick. I really appreciated that. I enjoyed it.
Was it coincidence or God? You decide for yourself, but I believe you just heard a story for His glory. When You Look is powered by stories just like this, and yours could be next. Go to whenyoulook.com/be-a-guest or use the link in the description below. Drop us a comment and share this episode with somebody that needs it. Until next time, thanks a bunch for listening and watching, and God bless.